Hello everyone, my name is Roya, and it's really cloudy out today, so even though this is the same time of day I always film, it's way too cloudy to get decent lighting. So anyway, so this is what I read that in the latter half of November. So I only finished 3 books in the latter half of November, but it's really okay. Changing Planes by Ursula K. Le Guin. This is a somewhat episodic sort of story about somebody waiting at an airport and going to different worlds instead of just waiting at the gate kind of thing. So it definitely is really interesting, and each chapter is sort of a different world that they go to, and some of it's really dark and some of it's really like creepy and some of it's really cool, and it's like I was expecting this book to be like kind of cool, but not really anything super special, but I actually ended up really enjoying it, and some of the chapters I felt like were very profound and all of that. So I really had a good time reading this book, and it's really short too. So anyway, so yeah, this is definitely a very underrated Ursula K. Le Guin book, but I definitely recommend checking it out. Then Song of the Crimson Flower by Julie C. Dow. This is the sort of companion sequel to Forest of a Thousand Lanterns and Kingdom of the Blazing Phoenix, and I had read Forest of a Thousand Lanterns, but I had not actually read Kingdom of the Blazing Phoenix. So this, you don't actually have to have read both of those or either of them even, to be able to read this and get what's going on and not be missing anything out of the world, because this does follow, for the most part, completely different characters. Some of the characters from the previous, duology do show up and all of that stuff. So I'm sure if you've read both of those, there's some, there's some stuff that you probably would get, but you're not like missing anything at all by reading this as a standalone. Basically, it really does stand on its own. So this basically follows 2 main characters who live in sort of a completely different part of this world, and they have sort of their own conflict going on. So follows this dude who is apprenticed to a physician and all of that stuff, but he's like an orphan, and he's sort of just like there, and he's in love with this girl who thought she was going to be marrying someone else who like doesn't actually care about her at all. So then some stuff happens, and the dude ends up getting trapped inside of a flute, and basically his corporeal body is like not all there anymore. It's kind of hard to explain, and the only thing that can break the curse is if that chick falls in love with him and confesses her love to him before a certain like amount of time goes by, basically. And so they end up having to go on this adventure to stop some stuff from happening, and along the way they do develop deeper feelings for each other and all of that. But I mean, this book really does start off with some really good conflict going on. The book has a really good way of making you get who the characters are and kind of go like, that is kind of weird, like what is going on and all of that. So I definitely really enjoyed this the whole way through, and I definitely recommend it. I actually enjoyed it a lot more than Kingdom of the Blazing Phoenix, because I liked Kingdom of the Blazing Phoenix, but I felt like in the conflict department that was where it fell flat, whereas this book handles the conflict a lot more and the like why you care about the characters and all of that. So yeah, so it's definitely really interesting, and I think it's a really good book. Last but definitely not least, Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames. I finally read this, and it is incredible. So this basically follows some dudes who were formerly in a band of mercenaries, and they get their band back together to save one of their daughters who basically had formed her own band and gone to basically into battle in a really, really dangerous situation. And so basically in this world, mercenaries, like bands of mercenaries, are like held up and put on a pedestal like rock bands. Basically in this, so the whole narrative has this very like wink, wink, nudge, nudge. They're like a rock band kind of tone that like really breaks the fourth wall and makes it really funny. And I loved that about this. So I, as a musician myself, like I thought it was a really good commentary on kind of how these people with just this random job are somehow held up as being all cool, when really they're just like people trying to survive, barely making a buck. Most of their money goes towards their booker and their bard and all of that stuff, and the gigs they're playing are like are playing the gigs that they have, which their gigs are like fighting a monster and stuff like that, are basically things uh that are not worth the like meager amount of money they're really getting and all of that stuff. And so yeah, so it's basically a bunch of like older men who are like they've since just stopped being mercenaries. They've had families and all that stuff, and they've gotten older, but they like have a reason to get back together and go on tour, which is of course to rescue that one dude's daughter basically. And yeah, and the way that conflicts are presented too, just has this really funny tone kind of, and I found myself just totally cracking up at everything in this book. I swear to God. So there's even like a part where they there's this monster that's about that no one's ever seen before, and it's about to kill all of them basically, and the chapter ends, and then the very next chapter starts being like, well, did we really have to kill it in order to like not get killed, blah blah blah, like they already fought it. And so it does, so if any action scenes were going to just be filler or something, they kind of just skip that part, which I thought was kind of interesting and actually a really good move, because this definitely does have its share of fighting scenes and action scenes, but it skips over any that actually would have just been boring, sort of, in this kind of comical way where like the next episode starts and they've already done, like that already happened. And I actually really liked that about it. I thought it was really good. The only thing that I had a problem with, I guess, in this book is that there are a couple of different counts of fat shaming, which really are not that bad or that in depth, but the comments that are made are pretty mean. So if you are trying to avoid literally any mention of like any kind of fat shaming whatsoever, this book might not be for you. Yeah, so overall I loved the crap out of this book, and I'm really excited to read the next one. So those are the books that I read in the latter half of November. So if you've read any of these or have any thoughts on them, let me know in the comments, and I will see you very soon with a new video. Bye!